Is what's your background or experience in business dining etiquette?
Oh, okay. Well, I currently work for Career Services. I'm the account manager, and I am responsible for the website, the social media, and all the print and digital materials. So, therefore, I create the flyers that promote the program. Depending on which campus it is, I'm also can be involved in the logistics of it, whether it's signing in the students, helping find someone to actually present it. We usually do try to find somebody that's an expert in business dining etiquette, although most of us have also done train the trainer, where we've actually been taught how to present at a function such as this if we can't find somebody to be there. I also will do the agenda for the event. So we have one on Thursday night. So I just finished, I guess, all the edits you would say of the agenda. So that will include the bio, the picture of the presenter, as well as the structure, the opening remarks, who's going to be speaking, who's going to be closing, as well as the menu, and then promoting any future events. We also do assessments, so we ask the students what they thought of the program, what we could do better, were our marketing efforts well received, and so on. So that's kind of the structure of the event. So now this will be my ninth professional dining etiquette at FIU.
Okay. And what cultures have you worked with in the past?
Well, at FIU, I would probably say almost every single one. We obviously are a very diverse university. What's nice about the professional dining etiquette with some of the presenters is they'll do the continental way of eating and the European. So the way that you hold your fork, spoon, the layouts are all different compared depending on which one you use. So when we've had presentation from two here, they've talked about that. They're like, okay, well, if you are with a European recruiter, you may want to hold your fork this way, so upside down, so to speak. But they're really looking at the basics of what you use and when, where you place your hands, never elbows, not talking while you're speaking, just so that when you're interviewing or speaking with a business, you don't want anything to distract for them. You want everything to be a plus. So obviously you want to make sure that you're eating things that you're capable of eating. I mean, nothing with your fingers, nothing that's going to be too messy. So, and then also knowing when is the proper time, when to eat things, how to keep the conversation going, even something as simple as knowing that there's always going to be a host person at the table and they need to sort of tell, okay, everyone eat. So they just talk about the rules of etiquette.
And what are the most important do's and don'ts for students to focus on?
I would say some of the things that I spoke about, just to make sure not to be rushed. Don't drink while you're there. Don't eat spicy foods. Try to, again, keep the distractions at a minimum. Usually a good idea is to modulate what the person is doing. So if the person takes one roll, you take one roll. Order roughly around the same price item or thing. Again, most of our interactions are going to be in office settings, but occasionally someone, especially as you move up in the in your job title responsibility, you may have a coffee interview, you may have a Skype one, you may have a dinner one, because a lot of times employers want to see if you fit. They have 100 people to choose from, but they want to know who's going to fit best in their environment. So they may take you to a place where these etiquette rules will make a difference in whether you get hired or not. So I think it's really just minimizing, again, being careful, eating slowly, chewing completely, and not speaking. Again, keeping your elbows off the table when you're eating and waiting for them to set the cues. They should be the first one to start eating or tell you to eat, making sure that if you have to excuse yourself, you stand up, no cell phone on the table. Those are sort of the things to really look at.
Okay. Who should pay for the meal?
Generally, it would be the employer because just like a date, whoever invites out is usually the person. Now, you can offer, but I think also if it's, especially I would say if it's not someone from the United States, it would definitely be expected that the employer would pay. So that would be something that it wouldn't. I don't know that we even bring that up in it because it's pretty much assumed that the employer would otherwise tell you. Now, of course, if you're already in the job and you're going, then you can find out. But generally, if an employer is asking for your coffee, always bring a wallet with you just in case. But I think that there's an expectation that they'll be providing the food for you.
Okay. And when is it appropriate to excuse yourself to go to the restroom or anything like that?
I think you look for a lull in the conversation. Either before the food arrives quickly or after a main portion of the food has been eaten. And also sort of plan out your day. If you know that you're the type of person that needs to go to the bathroom every hour, then maybe you have less water. So you have to sort of modulate yourself. If coffee always makes you go to the bathroom, maybe you don't have coffee, or you have it at the end. There's nothing wrong with, as you just look for a pause in the conversation. Go, oh, I'm sorry, can I be excused? Do you know where the restroom is? Or when the waiter comes by and puts a plate down, maybe you ask, oh, do you know where so you look for those gaps in time between there.
Okay. Oh, I put here, is it okay to order wine or alcohol? But I guess
generally not. Well, most of our students, of course, aren't 21, so you definitely don't do anything that's illegal. We usually recommend that you don't, just because you don't know what your tolerance will be that day. Even if the employer offers, either if you feel like they're insisting and you are normally a wine drinker, maybe one. But in general, that would very rarely, certainly wouldn't happen, most likely wouldn't happen at lunch. Now, in the 60s in the United States, there used to be that whole gin and martini during lunch. I think we've pretty much shied away because of legal compliance reasons. Most people only do alcohol in actual company events. I can't think of any that I've heard that a prospective employee has been offered a wine. But again, you look to the employer and you do your best not to drink. But if you feel like it would be looked as weirdly that you didn't, then again, try to keep it to one so that you keep your wits about you.
And is there anything that Americans take as normal that other cultures would take as rude?
Probably many things. I'm trying to think offhand. We are, and even like culturally in here, like in Miami, we kiss, we hug. If you go to Ohio and you kiss and hug, they're probably going to be like, wait a second, I don't even know you. Even strangers we kiss and hug. So obviously that would be acceptable probably in Latin American countries. In Europe, they're going to ask for a second kiss. So if you don't do the second one, that would be seen offensive. I would definitely say, not thanking, eating before. I don't know that Americans would do that, but I think it would be seen as more offensive if you eat before the host or the employer eats. So, those would be kind of the taboo things. But in reality, if you know that you're doing an interview with someone that is from another country, for instance, I did a mock interview with a student that had an interview at the Japanese embassy. So I had the expectation that she would know specifically what is culturally acceptable, because she was actually, not embassy, but the consulate, she was going in there. We can't assume just because someone has a Japanese or a Brazilian ancestry that they follow those rules. They could have been here and their family 100 years. But if you are going to a location, or maybe you're interviewing for a company that their corporation is from a specific country, then it is worthwhile to do the research, especially with some of the Asian, because they have a lot of customs. There's a tea ceremony, there's all sorts of things. But I think in 2015, things have loosened up a little bit. It's just a sign of respect to know what is the cultural. And luckily we have Google, so you can Google search everything. But at least being aware that there may be these little differences. We struggle with students not from other countries not knowing business professional attire. That means a suit. That means a shirt and tie. That means no jeans or no sandals. It's dress shoes. So that is something. There are some differences, but all it takes is the education piece and letting them know, not assuming that everyone knows what those differences are.
And last question. How does timeliness differ from American to South American, European?
Goodness, that would be quite a bit. I actually am in an intercultural class right now for my master's program. They have this whole thing about time, how, time here. For me, for instance, since I'm American, I show up to things on time. But a party may be 3 hours later. It might start 3 hours later if you're going to the party of a friend that has a Cuban heritage. Some towns in Africa, it may not even happen that entire day. So there was this whole video that we watched for class. So time is fluid in different places. But if it is an interview in the United States, regardless of the country, it's probably going to happen on time. And the expectation is 15 minutes on time, even if it means sitting in your parking lot till it's 15 up. You don't want to show earlier than that, because you are really being bothersome, because you're going to be waiting, sort of how you wait in there for me. Imagine if you showed up half an hour late and I have to pass you. And so the rule of thumb for us is usually 15 minutes early is being on time. So, you're there early enough to respect that person's time, but you're not lingering. So I haven't heard of interviews necessarily being culturally different in the United States. Now, if you interview for a position somewhere else, then it may be later, But definitely here, regardless of the heritage, if someone has an interview at 5, the expectation is you're going to be there at 4:45, and most likely, unless the person's running late, it's going to start on time. Because I think most companies do recognize that happens here. But again, regardless of what time they keep you waiting, you're there on time. That's what we would teach our students. So I always tell people, have something if half full. You can always write notes. You don't really want to be on your phone too much when you're sitting in front of a secretary. And we also tell our students, treat every single person you see as if they were the CEO, because you never know that the person at the front desk could be married to the director and will tell everything. So you really want to, show good habits when you're even in front of someone waiting.
Okay.